Hey everyone, welcome to the Wisdom Seat podcast. I'm Bill Moriarty, and today we're going to talk about Venerable Khenchen Thrangu Rinpoche, who, as many of you will know, died in June 2023. Rinpoche was born in Tibet in 1933 and recognized as a Tulku by the 16th Karmapa. He became widely respected for his scholarship, compassion, and his ability to present the essence of Buddhism in a clear and accessible way. He played a critical role in preserving the Karma Kagyu lineage of teachings. Thrangu Rinpoche traveled the world teaching students and later became one of the main teachers of the 17th Karmapa. I'm happy to have Richard Driscoll as our guest today. Richard is a board member here at the Wisdom Seat and was a longtime student of Thrangu Rinpoche, and he received many teachings and empowerments from him over the years. He'll share with us memories of Thrangu Rinpoche as well as his own very personal journey of becoming a Buddhist under his guidance, which he says happened in a series of coincidences. I hope you enjoy this conversation. We all know Thrangu Rinpoche passed away recently.
Yeah.
And you got to be his student
Yes.
for many years.
Yes, I did.
And so I would love to hear your stories or remembrances or anything you'd like to share.
Okay. So I met Thrangu Rinpoche, it must have been June or July of 1998, because it was right after my first wife had passed away. And I was looking around at all kinds of things after that, kind of adrift. And the first coincidence was my wife went to an acupuncturist who was also treating many Shambhala members, including senior Shambhala members. And one of them was Sam Burkholz. So I happened to be reading this book. As my wife got more and more ill, I was looking for things to read to keep my spirits up, and then I happened on Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. So the first one was Meditation in Action.
Sure, yeah.
And then I started in on Myth of Freedom, and I was reading that in the acupuncturist's office while my wife was being treated.
Okay.
And the acupuncturist saw me reading that book, and he was a Chinese man, and he said, the guy who published that book comes here. I said, what? He comes here? He said, yeah, he gets acupuncture here. I said, boy, you got to introduce me to him, Dr. Zhu. And he said, okay, I'll do that. And so he scheduled an appointment for me and Sam at kind of the same time, and we met each other. And Sam said, the Shambhala Center is closed for renovation right now, but if you want to learn meditation, just come on over to my house. We have an informal group. I said,
wow.
Okay, great. So I got my instruction in shamatha from his wife, Hazel, and then I just started going there. And we were going through different books, by Trungpa Rinpoche. And, and finally I felt like I was kind of finding some ground a little bit. I was way up in the air in my head. I didn't know what to do. And like some things were kind of falling into place, it seemed like. So after about a year of doing that and being comfortable with meditation and some rudimentary Buddhism that they were teaching us, Sam suddenly said, it was summertime, and he said, there's this Lama who's going to be on the East Coast. You should check him out. I said, okay, what's his name? His name's Thrangu Rinpoche, and he's just starting these retreats up in Maine. So it would be a good time to check it out because it's starting to gather. So I did that. I drove up there. It was in Freeport, Maine. It was a beautiful day. And out in a field, an open green field, kind of typical New England idyllic, cows in the distance and all of that, is this huge Tibetan tent.
Oh, great.
And that was Thrangu Rinpoche. He was in there, and and people were this thing was just starting to happen, so people were running around kind of not knowing what to do, but it still was happening perfectly. I didn't care, if somebody wasn't there to serve me food or something like that, or they didn't
So
know
is
how
that
to
your
use.
first retreat experience?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way. It was just like I met him, and um, so yeah, I take my place in the tent, and I knew how to meditate. I didn't know anything about Tibetan or Tibet or Thrangu Rinpoche. I was just starting to learn about Trungpa Rinpoche.
Mm.
Someone told me, oh, they were Vajra brothers in Tibet. And Sam did say to me, meeting him is like meeting Trungpa Rinpoche. So I was a little bit jazzed up by this because maybe my expectations got a little too high. But I went in there and it's packed in that tent. And Rinpoche starts teaching. Peter Allen Roberts was translating. The first word I heard out of Rinpoche's mouth was Mahamudra. Okay. I didn't know that at the time, though. What I heard was Chakya I didn't know what that meant.
Okay.
But I learned later, studying Tibetan, that means Mahamudra. And then he was off. And it was like, it was just this incredible download in Tibetan. And, and I'm sitting there, what is he saying? Because Peter will stare off for like a good half hour. And so somehow he retained it all and could, give us the translation.
Peter is I don't know this person. He's a translator? Okay.
Yeah, he's a British guy from Oxford.
Okay.
And he met Rinpoche at Samye Ling in Scotland because Rinpoche first was, just like Trungpa Rinpoche, was going to Oxford and then up to Scotland to Samye Ling, the center that Trungpa Rinpoche founded up there.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I'm just kind of blown away by the whole thing. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to follow what Peter is talking about. I don't know what Mahamudra is. I don't know what he's saying. And then, that's the end of the teaching for that day. And then there were empowerments every day. Oh. And the first empowerment was Chenrezig Zieg. And that's when I got blown away by him. I was already, I thought this man's unusual. He's got this high energy and he's like delivering all these teachings and he doesn't seem to get tired at all, And so then, he turns around and then he's going to give us an empowerment. We all have to get out of the tent and he's preparing everything for the empowerment. I hear him chanting in there and I wonder, what the hell's going on? And they say, okay, you can come in, and we file in and we take the Abhisheka water and all of this stuff that, I eventually became familiar with, but I didn't know, it seemed like not quite Catholic Mass, but something else was going on. And now I think I know what he was doing. He was calling down the Jnana Sattvas. He was calling down the wisdom beings to like merge with us, purify the whole space, make this Abhisheka, this empowerment happen. And seeing him do that, he was clearly making something happen. And I just couldn't believe it. And then people around me started crying, because this was so powerful, this calling down, come down here and bless this place. And so it was kind of like I was getting caught up in the emotion of the whole thing with everybody else. And I still didn't know what was going on. Okay. So then they said later on, okay, there's group interviews with Rinpoche. I said, okay, all right. I think I want to talk to this person. He's on to something and I don't know what's going on. And I'm kind of lost right now.
He's on to something. Yeah, I like that. He's on to something. Yeah.
But I'm grieving my wife and something's going on with this guy. Maybe he can help. I'd talked to several people, like a Catholic priest, a Lutheran minister, kind of gave me a clue. He said, death is spiritual. I said, okay. So that was probably my orientation in wanting that interview. Like, I wanted to ask him what I should do. So we went into the tent and people started asking her questions. And then it was my turn. And I said, Rinpoche, my wife has just died. What do I do? And you know how he's always smiling?
Yes.
Every single picture, he's smiling. That was one of the very few times I saw him stop smiling. And he became very grave and he was looking down. And then he looked up and he smiled at me again. And I felt like I was in an X-ray. Like he could see exactly what was going on inside me. I don't know how to describe that feeling, Bill.
Yeah, I've heard Michael say a similar thing, maybe around being Trungpa Rinpoche.
Yeah.
Maybe you go in to ask your question and all of a sudden your question doesn't make any sense anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was able to ask my question, but his answer was Du Tong Len, and he smiled. I thought, Du Tong Len, what's that going to do? How's that going to help? And I was kind of even more confused. But now it's funny, like seeds are planted at different times and you don't realize what's going on, that this stuff's going to like suddenly go into full bloom.
Right.
So now I realize he was smiling. He could have said anything. The smile said, you've come to the right place. Good for you. I think you're going to get some help, So I kept going. I was still kind of up in the air, but that feeling of being seen thoroughly, I never forgot. So even though I felt like he didn't answer my question. It was like, well, maybe it doesn't matter. He saw into me, Then the whole period of wrestling with this started. Like, okay, I have to work at my job. I have to keep things rolling, and pay the bills and everything else. And how do I relate to him? Okay, and that answer came down within the second year of, you want to be a student of Thrangu Rinpoche? Do Nundro. Nundro, what's that? And then someone took me aside and explained Nundro to me, and I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do that and hold down a job and all this other stuff?
Yes. Yes.
And I talked with Sam a lot about this and other people, and they really, really helped me. People in the Sangha really helped me a lot. And I took refuge with Sam. So I was kind of laying the groundwork for being able to do Nundro. And then finally, I think it was the third year, I took Bodhisattva vows from Thrangu Rinpoche.
Wow.
And then Sam said to me, Shambhala Publications has organized a trip to Nepal and Tibet. You should go on it. So by now, I know when Sam says something, I really should give it serious consideration.
Yeah.
And what he was at that point was he was my spiritual friend, my Gewei Shenyan, they say in Tibet, but he was clearly guiding me. And so I said, okay, I think I can take that amount of time off from work. I don't think they'll get too pissed off. And it was in the spring, it wasn't summer, so that was better. So I went to Nepal and Tibet.
Wow.
I couldn't believe I was doing this.
This is your third year of meditation practice, Buddhist practice?
Yeah, third year. Let's see. Yeah, third year, 1998, so 2001.
Okay.
So in the spring, so I go first to Kathmandu, and we go all over. They have these organized tours, and I do that. And then again, there's another coincidence. I run into Rinpoche's secretary, Gloria Jones. She says, "Oh, you're here?" I said, "Yeah, I just got here." "Oh, Rinpoche's in the monastery. You should go visit him." I said, "Okay." So she arranged an appointment, and I went over there, and I got in line to see Rinpoche, and there was Rinpoche, and he was delighted to see me, and he's smiling. And I guess the whole thing, there's Bodhanath out the window, the prayer flags, all the Tibetans, all these people lining up, these little old ladies to see Rinpoche, all this. And here I am. And I really don't know what the hell's going on at this point. And I just totally lost it, Bill, in front of him. I lost it. I did my prostrations and just was crying. And I held up a picture of my first wife. And he knew exactly what was going on. And he immediately started blessing the picture. And then I felt relieved. And I thanked him. I did more prostrations. Yeah. And he said, "Are you busy?" I said, I'm not busy. He said, "Please come to the high school." Okay. So I think that is when I knew that the power of that, on top of the other thing, just, asking him a question, I knew I was his disciple.
Wow.
And I knew I'm going to do Nundro with this man. I'm going to do it because, I have to be around him.
Yeah, it's very fortunate.
So one thing was happening after another. Now I look at it, it's mind blowing how one thing was connected to another like that. So I went to the high school, and I saw how Rinpoche was exactly the same dealing with everybody. If it was some sleazy looking education ministry person, Rinpoche was fine with that person. Smiled, always giving presents, gave presents right and left, and after that, I knew I was going to be going to these retreats for as long as he had them. So Rinpoche would give teachings on different topics in Maine. He didn't go back to the field. They rented a place that had rooms where we all could stay.
Okay.
While he was teaching there, and he would teach for about a week. And so one year I was there, and Eric Schmidt was translating. So Eric took us to Tibet, and I should say that the Tibet experience, that was a whole other thing, a whole other mind-blowing thing that also kind of sealed the deal. You're crossing a street in Lhasa, and some guy's prostrating across the street. You look down, he's prostrating right past you. You go to the bar court, all these people are prostrate. It's just nonstop prostrating everywhere you go. Wow. At that time in Lhasa, 2001. And I'd never seen such incredible faith. So that got me, and I came home with that. So anyway, I was talking about his retreat, and this particular retreat where I asked him another question. So I didn't understand emptiness at all. I didn't understand why it was so important. I didn't know what they were talking about. They were saying it's not nothing, but it's not something. Well, then what is it? And they can't, they can't tell you. So I thought I had figured out a way to ask Rinpoche about emptiness. So I said, "Okay, Rinpoche, let's say I'm a police officer, and I'm a Buddhist, and there's a thief who's just robbed a jewelry store, and I'm sent to go catch that thief." Okay. So I see the thief, I tell him to stop, but there's a problem. The thief knows that I'm a Buddhist. The thief says to me, stop. There's no thief and there's no theft. Nothing has happened here.
Right.
So what do I do, Rinpoche? And he laughed. He loved it. He loved that. And he said, and he started in Tibetan. He was trying to stop from cracking up in Tibetan. But so finally, Eric Schmidt translated. He said, well, basically, and Eric is very dour, kind of, what do you call it, deadpan, He said, well, what you say to the thief is, that is all true. That is all true. But there is my illusion-like jail cell where I am taking you right now. And you're going to spend time there. Even though it doesn't exist, I'm going to take you there. And
That's
everyone cracked up over that. But so, there were many, many, instances of things like that, the way he would introduce different teachings. One year he decided, I guess he had heard enough grief stories like mine. He said, okay, everyone, the next retreat, everybody bring a picture of a relative or someone who has died who you really care about. And he had this massive bonfire, and it was a Tibetan ceremony for the dead. And he did that, and that was very memorable. And then after a while, Rinpoche was looking around for another space, and he decided to build it in Crestone, Colorado.
Oh, right.
But first he started going to Crestone and teaching down there. Other lamas were down there. And plus the Karmapa Stupa was down there. So he felt that was a good place to be. Yeah, so a couple of years he was going there. So I tried to attend everything. I finished, whatever that means. I finished my Nundro, and he was delighted with that. And he gave me another practice to do. And I started in with that. And things kind of changed when he became the Karmapa's tutor, because now he had these official responsibilities of training and teaching the 17th Karmapa. And so he couldn't travel as much, and he wasn't as available as before. But I felt well enough along, and I was grateful. And the good thing about it is everything was recorded or put into book form, so it's all out there. And that's pretty much the way he delivered it. You could tell that he was almost wearing himself out teaching, and the monks were protective of him, because they had to keep him alive, and he had this official responsibility as the Karmapa's tutor. So, and he probably had other, duties that he had to take care of, especially in Nepal. And I could see that he was preparing us for when he was not going to be around. Like in the later retreats, he would meditate with us sometimes, which was very powerful. And we'd all come out of there, wow, wasn't that fantastic? Then the next session, meditation session, he's not there.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the last teaching in Maine that he gave was extremely memorable and became the book Vivid Awareness, published by Shambhala. Yeah, with Khenpo Gangshar on the cover. So that's one of Thrangu Rinpoche's teachers, Khenpo Gangshar, who was a crazy yogi, and with whom Trungpa Rinpoche had a very involved relationship. I don't know much about it. He didn't talk much about it, but Khenpo Gangshar was a very intimidating, powerful Lama, and did what he wanted. So at this particular teaching, this is what Thrangu Rinpoche received from Khenpo Gangshar. And what's significant about it, it was getting close to 1959.
Right.
And there were signs that things were not going well. And some of the head lamas were leaving. They were escaping out of there. More and more soldiers were coming in. So finally, Khenpo Gangchar just cuts loose with this teaching of how to deal with absolute chaos, and this is the practice. And it's detailed in that book. So there was a kind of urgency to delivering that teaching that Thrangu Rinpoche received, and he told us about that. But it was something to be receiving it from Thrangu Rinpoche, who received it in Tibet from Khenpo Gangchar directly. Khenpo Gangchar was called a crazy wisdom yogi. So while everyone, including Trungpa Rinpoche, was escaping into India, Khenpo Gangchar turned and headed toward China and said, that's where I'm going. No one went with him. So we don't know what happened to Khenpo Gangchar. Now, somebody found in China, in Beijing, I think, found the consort of Khenpo Gangchar and interviewed her, and it's been filmed. It's either on YouTube or somewhere else, and Matt knows about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Yeah, that's kind of powerful.
I only really discovered Thrangu Rinpoche because of the Vivid Awareness book. And I mean, unluckily for only a few months ago. Matt Dorodio, Michael Kerr, everyone's always offering, mentioning great books. So I'm not sure who mentioned this, but I read this. I've just been so struck by how he's so good at writing things so simply.
Oh yeah,
he writes things so simply, and I was pretty struck by that. He grew up, like was raised or whatever, but with Trungpa Rinpoche, but they have very different ways of communicating. Like
exactly.
Trungpa is like a lot of metaphor, a lot of poetry, and this is like almost like Hemingway style of like, is it like this? It is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exact. So that style, it's somewhat monastic. Okay. What's interesting about, unlike Trungpa Rinpoche, Thrangu Rinpoche is a Geshe Larampa. So what that means, it's like having a PhD in Buddhism.
Okay.
In the Gelugpa school, in the Dalai Lama's school. What happened was Thrangu Rinpoche escaped. He went to a Tibetan refugee camp called Buxador with really horrible conditions. He's trying to establish a monastery. It's not happening. The Dalai Lama is there, and I guess he sees Thrangu Rinpoche's tremendous gift of explaining very complicated things. So he said, you will study for the Geshe Larampa degree, and then you're going to join the 16th Karmapa in Rumtek. But, it was like Tibet had just ended. So, it's all been blown to smithereens, and they're trying to put things together in different ways, and they don't know where they're going to go. So it was some incredible ordeal to become a Geshe Larampa. He had to get in front of this huge panel of monks and scholars and senior monks, and they were going to drill him on all these fine points of logic and texts, and in a tradition he was not even raised in. Okay. And he passed with flying colors. In fact, he was like one of the first Geshe Larampas. And, it was a huge deal. And that then he reconnected with the 16th Karmapa. And then he was put in this tutor, being a tutor to the three eminences. Thrangu Rinpoche early on was instrumental in teaching and had that monastic style of breaking it down into digestible pieces. And a lot of people were caught up in sophisticated arguments and debates, which is a hallmark of the Gelugpa school. These, I'm studying Tibetan right now with a Gelugpa guy. The guy's incredible. He's a great teacher. But the guy was a lawyer. Okay. and every translation is like a whodunit. Okay, what's the scene of the crime? Okay, well, look what we got here. We got this, here's a clue. Oh, someone did this. Uh-oh, now we're in trouble. So first I didn't understand that simplicity. Like, wait a minute, when I did know about Mahamudra, I thought, oh, I'm going to be told all this incredible stuff that's going to blow my mind. And Rinpoche didn't do that. Yeah. And I know now he wanted us to actually practice it, not talk about it, not say fancy, impress the Sangha type sentences. No, he wanted us to actually sit and practice. And that was usually, when he'd see me, that was usually his first question. How is your practice? Mm. How are you? How is your practice?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm always impressed by that. Like inexhaustible energy, or like you see like Dilgo Rinpoche always, there's that video where he goes back to Tibet and he accepts every invitation. People are carrying him. Yeah. So this sounds like how Thrangu Rinpoche was also.
Yes, he was like that. It was more who he was, and like you say, that inexhaustible energy, and that he was the personification of bodhicitta to me. He was an actual bodhisattva. And, maybe I didn't get everything right when I was meeting him, but after a while, it really started to sink in. I feel my life is meaningful having met him. That's all I can say.
Hey, all, before you go, if you did enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast. You can also visit our website at thewisdomseat.org to learn more about our programs and events. We'd love to hear from you.